Well, welcome everybody. Welcome to the usual suspects, and we also welcome the new ones. Hoping that they're going to be moving forward with us, particularly on this program. Let me give a little bit of background so that there's a bit of understanding in terms of who we are and what we do. So my name is Vigela Rankin, and I am founder of a organization called Value Ed, and together with my co-founder is Refilwe, who will be hosting the program as we progress and giving you an indication of what we do. Just for your understanding, Value Ed is a self-mastery program that was designed about 12 years ago. It's been running for the last 12 years and running very differently, as you can well imagine, in the last 2 months. With the advent of COVID, we've had to reposition ourselves. Typically, what we were doing is we were going to areas where we found predominantly the youth in colleges, universities, schools, etc., etc. And we were putting together what is known as a self-mastery, personal excellence, and performance program. And what's happened since the last 4 or 5 months is that there's a couple of offshoots, as I would call them, that have come out of that program. So we have the one program, which is the Value Ed program. We have another program, which is one of the offshoots of the Value Ed program. As a consequence of going to schools, universities, colleges, and all that, typically speaking to the youth and the students there, I was asked on numerous occasions to speak to the educators that were there, the teachers and the lecturers, etc. So one of the offshoots of that is a program that we've started this month as well, which is specifically for teachers, and it's known as the Teachers and Educators Program. We continued that and developed a program called Valuepreneur, which is again a startups program designed for people who in this particular period are starting businesses, etc. And that's also up and running from the 1st of September. And then an offshoot of that has been this program, which is personal branding and social media. So what's been basically you're beginning to see is we're having different programs being developed and designed so that we can spend more intensity and more time on them in order to support whether it's personal excellence and self-mastery and performance related issues, whether it's valuepreneur related issues, and in a completely different case, whether it's a teacher or educators program. So what we're going to do now is give you an overview of the personal branding and social media program that we are launching, and it will be starting the first module actually this week. And we are going to show you hopefully why it's an important part of whatever it is that you're doing. And this, I think, is standard in everybody's life, lock, stock, and barrel. Obviously, if you're an entrepreneur, valuepreneur, which is for entrepreneurs, will be useful for you. If you're an educator or a teacher, the teachers program will be useful for you. But this one, I think, encompasses everybody and is lock, stock, and barrel, essential for just generally in terms of how you're going to present yourself moving forward. So without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Refilwe, and we're going to have a dialogue as we start having a conversation around this program and it's what we believe to be its essentialness. And at the end, we'll tell you the rudimentaries in terms of how to join and what it will take. But as we do that, thank you very much for joining. Thank you very much for being part of the program, and off we go. So Mahlatsi, you know it, you've been here before. I think you're just getting experience in terms of understanding it even more. But for those of you who don't know it, we will focus on yourselves as well. So, Refilwe, over to you, the hostess.
Thank you, Vic, and good evening, everybody, and thank you for joining us. As Vic has mentioned, this is a very important topic that we're discussing today. When a lot of people think about personal branding, they think, or when they think about branding in particular, it has to be for business or a media personality. But in actual fact, each and every one of us is a brand. And what this program is about is getting everybody to start thinking of themselves as brands and start positioning themselves intentionally as brands as well, and using social media as a tool to craft that narrative and craft that brand. So I'm going to get started. Let me. So, what is personal branding? Jeff Bezos put it very eloquently, saying, "Branding is what people say about you when you're not in the room," and that's basically what it is. And the reason we're, like I said, we're getting into this is because personal branding, is about managing your name, even if you don't have a business. Right now, in this day and age, this digital age that we're living in, there's a lot of misinformation, disinformation, and semi-permanent Google records about each and every one of us. The fact that you're just existing, there's a digital footprint of you out there, whether you have registered a Gmail account, whether you've registered, you've had a Facebook account that you've since deleted, whatever the case is, the fact that you've been in a digital platform before, there is a footprint, and all of that encompasses together and becomes part of your brand. So if you look, brand is, we're looking at impressions, we're looking at your image that you're putting out there, intention. So that's the messaging that you're putting out there, what you're tweeting, what you're putting on Facebook, integrity, identity, all of that together forms part of your own personal brand. So that is what this program is all about when we're talking about personal branding.
Can I jump in a little bit on that as well? Just a couple of things I've been thinking about, Refilwe, is that historically branding was always related to product.
Yes.
So typically when we thought of branding, we always, ascribed it to a product, whether it was Nike, whatever it was, whether it was McDonald's, but I think in the advent of the future, in terms of how interactions are going to take place, the key number one ingredient in how one sells anything is going to be about connections.
Yes,
and connections definitely. At a human level. And what's not been happening in the past, particularly from my generation, is people providing an intentional brand element about themselves. I could come with a cup of tea, or come with a Coca-Cola, and make you focus on the Coca-Cola or the cup of tea, and it wouldn't really be about me. It would be about those two things. But now it is about me holding the cup of coffee and the cup of tea. That is now becoming essential. And therefore, that is why I think it is important that people show up with intentionality about who they are from a personal point of view. And that's where I think this is so critical in terms of this element of personal branding, where before it was never thought of, but now it's going to be vital. It's going to be important.
Absolutely big. I think, the big thing here is intentionality. Everybody has a brand, whether you like it or not. But now taking matters into your own hands and being intentional about it. So that's the big thing here. So when we look at, why should you even think of, like I said, being intentional about your brand? Forbes released an article last year and saying personal branding, is both helpful and necessary in this day and age that we look at, this look at me cultural shift and evolving job markets. And I think this is the big one for a lot of us, the entering into the job market, whether you're a graduate or you're already working, because 70% of employers now use social media to screen candidates during the hiring stage. And then once you're in the company, 43% of employers use social media to check in on their current employees. And, a lot of people have said, well, what I say on my social media, is my own personal opinions, and why should my employers care? But the truth is, if you had even your own company, your employees, they're basically essentially your brand ambassadors, whether they like it or not. The fact that on their LinkedIn profile it says I work at Valuate, or I work at this X company, they are brand ambassadors of the company. So, like you said before, brands were your Nikes before, with this, and we had Michael Jordans who would put, who were associated with the Nike brand, or right now you have Serena Williams who's associated with the Nike brand. You are also essentially associated with the employers, the company that you work for. So, right now a lot of companies will have branding guidelines. You can't just go out there and say things and have it not impact your work. So a big part of it is you have to be intentional, because it could also impact positively or either negatively when it comes to employment as well. Your bread and butter, and you don't want to play with your bread and butter.
It's actually interesting you say that, and you're just getting me to think how, coming from the corporate world, we never paid attention to, we'd be excited if one of our employees was in the cover of a magazine, or pitched up on some news channel, or that was about the extent to which we actually even engaged with anybody who was on, reflecting themselves from an organizational point of view. But I guess more and more now, organizations are using technology and algorithmic technology to start, sifting the employees and what they're doing on social media, because it does have a direct impact at the end of the day to your overall company's branding. If somebody is not, portraying themselves positively and yet has got your logo or your company name all over them. And I don't think people are aware of that technology that's in place now for companies to be able to do that.
Absolutely. I mean, essentially, if you think about it, it's the same as wearing your company logo, the company t-shirt, golf t-shirt, and then going into the competitor's shop, or, doing something ridiculous that contradicts the what the company is about. So whether now you don't have to wear that golf t-shirt with the company logo now, you could be on social media because somewhere there says that you work for that company, And then also, some people may say, well, I'm not going to mention my employer's name. I'm not going to mention it on LinkedIn. I'm not going to mention it anywhere. But you're still going to go out there and look for a job, and they're still going to screen you, So, and we've seen a lot of examples, and, I'll be touching on those as well. But I think that the big thing is you have to, when you think about your brand, you have to think of what do people find when they Google you? Because, I mean, everybody uses Google now. Google is everybody's best friend. So when you meet somebody at the coffee shop, and they give you their business card, or it's an event, a function, and they give you their business card or their name, the first thing you're going to do is go and Google them. Even for a young person like myself, when I meet a guy online, the digital platform, online dating these days, first thing I do is I go and Google that person. So your brand is, when you think about your brand and how to curate your brand, think of when people Google me, what is it that I want them to find about me? Because there's a lot out there. And now with these companies that you've spoken about, with the algorithms, they go even deeper than what we will find on the surface of Google. It goes deeper. Companies are doing background checks with the fingerprints, but now these algorithms go even deeper, further, to find out, everything about us. So it's very important to know first and foremost, what is it that people are going to find out about me when they Google me. So that's one thing I always say. How often do you Google yourself? You don't want to be shocked.
Well, the old days, referencing was done where you did that typical thing of you would give 3 references, right? Company would say, give us 3 references. And you'd give them your mom and your best friend at work and then the boss you got on with, right? And that, worked for that particular period of time, and it worked in a professional point of view. But to your point, we're getting to the point now where we can cross-reference what you do on, Twitter, what you do on LinkedIn, what you do on Facebook, what you do, because usually those things all depict a different persona of you. Quickly put, and including your language, by the way, that's another thing, which I'm consistently telling young people. Put them all together and it will give us a representation of who we are without us having to ask for your references of your mom and your best friend and your your boss that you got along with. So this thing of presenting yourself consistently with intentionality, which is the word you and I are going to use regularly around this, because I think that's, underlines personal branding. It's going to be so important. Otherwise, you're going to be, off the ballpark completely. But you're also going to miss out on the opportunities, which is a lovely thing that you're going to talk about.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, the thing is also, if you look at the world where we're moving to, Vic, everything is changing. So even your CV these days, your CV is a one page. Employers, we don't want 3 pages of your CV. So even the CV itself, you go on Canva and you say, look for, a CV template. It's two pages max. So there's not even room for you to then go about yourself, how lovely you are, here are my 3 references. No, there's no time for that. So they will go on the digital platforms to find out then who you are. So everything is just evolving, and a big part of it is this. So when we look at, the personal brands and the extremes, or the misses and hits, I think this slide here shows a big part of that. When you say, what do people find when they Google you? So if we look at Kevin Hart, I mean, he missed out on a history-making moment. He could have been the first Black person to host the Oscars. And they went, and it's not even the employers at the time who would have been the Oscars, but it was, the general public who then went and dug up his tweets from 10 years ago and said, well, we can't have somebody representing us who is, homophobic and has made jokes about this. So sometimes it's not even the employers who will go, but if you are going and getting an opportunity to represent the public, then they will go and do the digging for you. One of the examples of this is a young lady recently this year who was trying to enter for Miss South Africa, 21 years old, and what she said at 14 years old, her racist comments when she was 14 years old, people went and dug up those tweets, and she missed out on that opportunity because we can't have somebody. And if you think about it, we've all said stupid things because we were young or you were drunk or whatever the case is. But that's the thing about having these digital footprints. It'll always be there. Even sometimes when you delete it, it'll always be there. Another example is obviously Adam Cazzavelo, who went and made that video that went viral, and that impacted not only him but his entire family.
Yep, that was a big one.
The business got, it got hammered. So sometimes it's not even just about you as an individual, but also it extends to the company, it extends to your family members, it extends to the business, the larger community. So these are just, a few examples. We have the lady on the right as well who had made comments prior about, tourism in Africa, and she was, chosen, appointed for this position with South African tourism. And her comments on Facebook, her opinions, a lot of people say, but it's just my opinion. Well, your opinions matter, and they will come back and bite you, basically. So that's what happened with this lady as well. And a lot of us don't think about that. And right now there could be some stuff that you've said already. It's time to go there and do your just check up on what it is that you've said in the past. Because right now, in this day in 2020, your tweets, your Facebook posts, they will be dug up, and you could miss on that opportunity.
And I'm just thinking here that if your intention is to be controversial, if that's the kind of brand you want to persona yourself as, then that's one thing, right? Because in that sense, then, and in that case, when they look you up, they'll always see these, really, what people might describe as outlandish statements that you make. But that's what you'll be known by, and you're okay with that because that's the intentionality of the persona that you're trying to create. I suppose what happens is that when you create a persona or you say something and then try and go and do the opposite of that something, or become surprised when somebody finds something about you having said those crazy or persona things, then that's when the challenges come, because obviously then you're taken by surprise. So it's important for this to be deliberate. And again, we use the word intentional in terms of what you're intending to put out there.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think, the big part of this is also, like you're saying, somebody could be intentionally trying to be controversial. But I think what happened was, like, for example, Kevin Hart, 10 years ago, when he made these jokes, people were laughing at these jokes. He wasn't
Yeah.
making the, because, and people were saying, no, don't do that or don't say that.
Yeah.
At that time, it was, socially acceptable to then make a homophobic um, joke and then people laugh at it.
Yeah.
But 10 years later, it's unacceptable. So,
Yeah.
and then also that obviously draws up the whole conversation of cancel culture, which is another thing we'll get to when we're going with the program. But it's, it's just one of those things that sometimes it's not even a matter of, it was just you. It could happen that the culture at the time, allowed for that. But for me, when I talk about these things, that's why I always say, go back and look at your tweets, go back and look at your Facebook posts and see if those things that you are still there. Because the thing is, if you leave it there, you're saying, I'm okay with this post that I made 10 years ago. So go back and look at those. Is this still acceptable right now? Facebook does those reminders where it's like 3 years ago you posted this, 10 years ago you posted this. When you look at it today, is it still acceptable? Maybe it's time to go back and then just do a see if everything that you've said in the past is still acceptable in this day and age. And then obviously there are some good moments when it comes to social media. We've seen a lot of people build their brands on social media, some intentionally and some not intentionally. I think Elsa is one of the greatest, stories that has come up, especially during lockdown. Young lady who was just posting her little videos on TikTok and on Twitter, and they went viral. They went viral because people could people were engaging with it. So that is one of the biggest stories that we've actually gotten in 2020. So that was not even intentional. But when it comes to, somebody who's used social media intentionally is Greta, who is a climate change activist, and she's used this her social media to as an activist for climate change as a young person, to get the leaders of the world to listen to what she has to say. And I think a big part here is that, yes, social media, and yes, the digital all these digital platforms have a negative or can have a negative impact, but they can also, if used intentionally for positive as well, can have great change. I think she's one of those people who's used this really well. I love this chicken licken ad that it earlier in this month in August. And, they used a lot of young South Africans who were intentionally, again, using their social media platforms to entertain us as a country. They were using TikTok mainly to just go out there and entertain, and they wanted to share their talents. But I think, the fact that it has made such a huge impact that they would get featured on a chicken licken ad and potentially even make some income. And who knows how many other brands will now approach them, for their ads and whatever whatever else they want to do. But that is another big element of this, using social media to build your brand, or to push your narrative, whether it is something that you're trying to be an activist for, or you just want to entertain. I think a lot of us, especially if you're in corporate, a lot of people are stuck in corporate because it pays the bills, but you can use your talents. And the social media is one way to then push your talent. A lot of people are having side gigs or side hustles, and they're using social media or digital platforms as a tool for that. So
No,
again, going to, you are your own brand,
yeah, I really like that, Refilwe, because the more we talk about this, the more I get even more excited about it, because it really is a complete breakdown of everything that we've known. When I think of people like Oprah Winfrey, and if I go past, when I think of the kind of icons that I grew up with, in order for you to be able to become one of those, there were a lot of hurdles you needed to jump over. You needed to find yourself in a strong media space. right? So let's say, for example, you get picked. Let's use SABC as an example. You needed to then from SABC grow and maybe find yourself on a global platform in terms of some media like BBC or ESPN or Sky or something. Then once you were in there, then you had to then compete with everybody who was there, who was in that media space. What's broken completely now is the fact that you can be as big as Oprah Winfrey sitting from your home on your
Yep.
social media page, right? And there are examples of people who are even bigger than Oprah Winfrey right now, who people haven't even heard of, because they're not in the mainstream media that traditionally, people used to have in terms of followings, in terms of number of people who you're watching. That's for me the first exciting thing about being able to use what you've just said, which is your skill, the thing that you enjoy, the thing that you'd
Yes.
love to become, to use that to your advantage in terms of how you do it. The second thing for me is the cost of it. Now,
Yes.
before, you needed to go out and hire marketing and personal PR communication companies and agencies and all that sort of thing in order to elevate yourself in the world of connecting with as many people. Now you don't even have to do that. There are really different self-help ways of managing the number of people who you connect with and the number of people who you grow with. So, and then the third thing is that I think that's exciting is that in all these things, they're all actually income generating capabilities. So whether you love cooking, whether you love modeling, whether you love taking pictures of flowers, whether you love taking pictures of birds, whether you love singing, whether it does not matter. The ability for you to intentionally present that brand that personifies you on a social media platform now that can create a revenue model or as well as a fame model, whichever one you want to look at. It's so amazing because it breaks down all the barriers of what were the barriers before of entry to be able to do this. This is big. In my opinion, we should not have unemployment. With this, everybody should be able to present their skill in one form or another and connect to the billions of people out there who connect to the social media sites.
No, you're absolutely right, Vic. And that's why I put this quote in the middle here, saying the best way to predict the future is to create one. Because this is what it does. You're able to create your own future. But just to add on even what you've said about, I think the old ways of having creating brands like Oprah Winfrey's and all these other big names, these global icons, is that what happens with them is when you are part of an SABC One, for example, you have a team, right? And the team then sits down with you and you create a strategy, which is where intentionality comes in, right? To say, how are we going to year after year after year maintain this brand? And so even with this, creating your own brand through social media, you have to be intentional about it. And this is what I do, sitting down with a person, an individual, saying, okay, this is the brand that you're trying to create. Let's be intentional and say, okay, what is the strategy? Which platforms are you going to use? What is the messaging? Because that's another element of it, right? We've seen a lot of, 5-minute, one hit wonders. People come in and they go viral, because that's what also social media does. Our attention span is very short. So something comes up, it's very exciting, and tomorrow we're on to the next thing. So if you don't seize the moment as well, so like what Elsa has done, she's getting a lot of coverage right now. But the best thing for her then is to get a team, right? A team behind her to say, okay, now with this fame that you have, with all these brands that are now calling onto you, we need to have a strategy so that even next year and 5 years from now, you're still relevant, right? And that is the big thing about then with, branding. You can't just also wake up and say, I'm going to do it. You have to be intentional. And that means coming up with a strategy, using the right platforms, for the sort of messaging that you're trying to do. And that is what, the program we're going to be teaching about. Because I think that, a lot of people just think, okay, I'm just going to wake up and start doing this. No, you also have to sit down and
No,
be intentional.
I wish there was something in life you could actually do that where you just wake up and do it. But in some you've
Nothing happens like
there's
that.
intentionality behind it. Just a couple of things that I also wanted to add here. And the one is that what is interesting from research is that you're 3 times more likely to be watched on social media if you put something up of interest than you are if you are famous. Now, that also completely kills everything historically that we used to know, in the sense that the only people who were watched or viewed were famous people. And interestingly enough, I was listening to Will Smith, who was saying that the reason why he ended up jumping very strongly onto the social media platform is that in the last 10 years, what he has seen is that before, in order for you to be famous, particularly if you were a movie star, you put out a movie and then you literally went into hiding because you'd keep people in suspense, in that point of interest as to, I wonder when he's coming back again, right? That's how the old way used to work. So what they do is they'd make movies once a year, go into hiding, and it was the actual suspense of them being in exclusion that created the hype of their celebritism. And then he was saying that what was interesting was that in the last less than 10 years, it's the opposite of that now. The more, if you look at people like The Rock and all these guys who post, the more you're on social media, the more you're visible, is the more that you're actually able to maintain, to your point, this element of your personal brand. Because there are other people coming on board who are not famous, et cetera, who are beginning to take up those vacuum places. That's why you're seeing more and more actors who only used to act on movie screens. Yeah, exactly, Prince. Actors who used to act on movie screens, right, now coming into the TV world, and above the TV world coming into the reality world, and above the reality world coming into the social media world, because they're beginning to realize that the more I'm consistent in my presence, the better it is. And this thing of creating the future, this quote of yours, Refilwe, is brilliant, because again, if you think about it, historically, or what we've been taught is that I'm educated, right, at school. I then, if I'm fortunate enough, I'm educated in tertiary. I get a qualification, and then I hope. I put my CV out there with the hope of getting something, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's no intentionality in creating anything, or even predicting your future. There may be a part of predicting the future in you doing a tertiary education afterwards, but you're still at the hope and the demand. You go into an interview, you sit there, and you hope that they, like how you interviewed, and you hope that they see your CV, and you hope that they take you in. But this world is different. There is no hope. You can actually create the outcome that you're looking for. And I think that's exciting.
Absolutely. You're absolutely right, Vic. And the exciting thing about this is that you can do it at any age, right? You can start literally at any age.
Well, I'm going to have to start now, so.
No. Well, I mean, yes, you definitely need to start, Vic. But, that's the beauty of it, right? Because now we have smartphones, we have laptops. You don't have to wait to finish matric, go to university, and then get a job, where they ask you for 5 years experience, and you're like, I just graduated. So, right now you can start with those talents, everything that you like. I mean, I think one of the greatest who's done it in this country is Mihlali. Everybody knows Mihlali. She's in the beauty space, YouTuber, and she started in high school. Literally does her homework and then does makeup tutorials. Now at 23, having reached over 1 million subscribers, but also even in revenue, she's made her 1 million mark. And people was like, at 23, well, yes, she started very early on. So that's the beauty of it. You can start on early. So going on to the, this next slide.
Actually, before you do that, I want you to tell the story, because I think it's an important one when you talk about age, about this, because people from my generation, and that's in the 50s, have this misnomer about starting, young people like my daughter at 6 in the social media space, right? We have that, but you've got the story of somebody who started literally their 2 babies or 2 kids.
Oh, yeah, the twins. The
twins, yeah, who by the time they were 12, were in the position to buy their own houses and buy their own cars and buy their own whatevers, because they'd been, they built up a personal brand and a personal following that was so significant.
Yeah, so the McClure twins are actually, no, they're not 12, they're 6 years old now.
Oh, they're 6, okay.
Yes, they're 6 years old now, and they have currently on Instagram alone 2.1 million followers. And oh, they're 7 years old. Sorry. But I've been watching these kids since literally they were like 2 years old. There was a video of them. I don't know if anybody here knows them. If you know the McClure twins, please do comment there. But there was a cute video of them, on social media that the mom put up, and they started the YouTube channel, with just the twins talking to each other, which you like, they didn't actually have talents at 2 years old because all they were doing is talking to each other, and they're so cute. But what the parents then did is literally the dad, I think, left his job and focused on making this a family business. So that meant getting the lighting, getting a studio inside the house. Everything was built around the twins. And then they had another child, and they've now made it a family business. So it's the McClure family instead of the McClure twins right now. But what was so smart about it is because even in the video, they talk about, before it was just taking moments of the twins being cute. But now, because they're growing and the audience is also growing, they're being more intentional.
Yeah.
So the content that they're curating is intentional. So
Yeah.
with the son, for example, has his own channel, and what the son will do is, you know coloring or learning animals or learning his ABCs. But that's because then the other 1 year olds and the other 2 year olds are also watching him, so they're also learning. The girls are, now in school, so the parents, they're curating the videos around what the girls are learning in school and all of that, because then the other kids who are also growing can also watch. So it's now becoming more educational as well. But I mean, I think that's brilliant. With this kind of following, the parents have bought a house and they show the house. They talk about how they're making their money through the ads and everything. And they putting that money away for the girls for college fund, for the university fund. But even if they don't go to university, I mean, those kids, by the time they're 21, will be able to buy their own houses, which for me is just like so brilliant. The fact that they started them that young. And we've seen this a lot. We've seen this a lot. I mean, if you think about the Kardashians, literally, they're brands, they're businesses. It's just the kids from Kim to North and all the other kids in between, they're
Yeah, no,
businesses.
absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah,
I never actually thought of that. And I think this whole construct of online reality TV, I remember when reality TV first started 15 years ago, if not slightly longer. Everybody wanted to be a reality TV star, but you couldn't be. But now you can be, because you can set up your own reality in your own
yeah,
world and in your own home. But one of the things I wanted to mention that is a massive byproduct of this, and if you catch this now, you're going to ride on a major wave that I think is coming. I don't think it's
absolutely.
coming, it's already here. And that is the point of this advertising. So there's a massive shift in where media is sitting. I mean, I don't know how many people sit and watch TV anymore, right? There are very few people who watch TV. The advent of DSTV, in other words, TV on demand, where we all got excited about the remote control that it could stop, pause, and all that sort of thing, right? Yes, thanks, Masati. Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Um, is now almost an old technology. What people want is what they wanted, and they want it now. The days of you sitting and watching um, a what do you call these things? A series once a week. You watch it for an hour this week and you wait until next week Tuesday to watch it, are gone. And hence the arrival of things like Netflix. But what's also happening is that advertisement is moving from certain media channels to others. So all of you know that when you go onto a YouTube or you watch this, you watch that, you get that sort of 5-second advert, or you get that sort of 10-second advert, etc. So what's it's starting to do is the brands are beginning to question, where do I want to be associated? So if your intentionality, and the classical story of this one is the story of somebody who went onto social media. I don't know the details of it, but the story of somebody who went onto social media who loved traveling and started, just visiting online, not getting into an airplane or going anywhere, countries, and just writing about them, blogging about them, right? And it built up to a point where people were reading and watching this without them even knowing that this person hasn't gone to these countries. And then all of a sudden they got a sponsorship, or they got advertising rights from a luggage company, right? And that luggage company grew to others who then started getting them to fly, et cetera, et cetera. So the point I'm getting at is that the media particularly advertising parts of the media, are moving on to social media. And if it relates to the intentionality of what it is that you're doing, it's much easier to get a company to sponsor 5, 10, 15, 20, whatever thousand rands a month, for them to either be on your website or to either be, sending stuff onto your videos or whatever it is that you're posting. I hope that made sense.
Absolutely.
Along with it.
No, absolutely. What they're calling it now is influencer marketing, because what customer experience is a big thing right now. So instead of a company, telling you how great their brands are, you're most likely to buy it because your friend told you or somebody that you look up to has told you. So even in the makeup space, we go and watch these YouTube videos because then Mekhali can tell me to use this contour stick instead of this one. But if Eva Longoria or some celebrity tells me that to use this, I know it's because you got paid to do it. I'm not saying Mikhai's not getting paid to do it, but I believe her more than I believe some celebrities.
So there are positives, not just negatives to social media. We went through the negatives, but these are the best way to predict your future, is to create it. And these are awesome ways of starting to do that.
So when you talking about actually also intentionality, it's very clear between these two representatives. So on the left, it's myself.
Thank you very much for using me as an example.
So when you Google, Refilwe Digomaje, there's actually 6 Refilwe Digomajes spelled the same, the same name with W, not O-E, and the surname as well. But it's funny that when you Google Refilwe Digomaje, you find me and not the other people. But that's because I'm being intentional about ensuring that when you go Refilwe, it's me who pops up. But if you look at, this is what I want people to find when they go and Google me. So the fact that my company is there because that's what I want to be associated with. I'm founder and CEO of Nawiri. And then you also have my Instagram, which is public. So whatever I put up on my Instagram, I'm very intentional about it, because then I know that any other person, including our vice president at work, can go on my social media and see my Instagram, and I don't necessarily want them seeing me twerking or doing anything like that. So it's a lot about, what it is that you put out there, but also what is associated with you, because sometimes you don't necessarily have control over what then pops up or is associated with your name. It could be an article that's been written about you, or somebody mentioned you or tagged you to their pictures on social media, because a lot of people do that. So they take a picture and then they tag you without even asking, can I tag you on this picture? So that is what also, becomes associated with you. So for me, a lot of what comes up is, either Oprah Winfrey or the Oprah Winfrey Leadership Academy for Girls, only because that's the school that I went to. So that is just one of the things that then will pop up about me. But I have to be then intentional about, okay, I need to curate my content so that that's what comes up first. So when you look at, branding, so when you come in, like, for example, my clients, when they sit with me, then we look at SOEs, because that is the background, what people don't necessarily see. So when you're doing your Vic Rankin website, for example, we have keywords to say, okay, Vic, what do you want to be known for? So if somebody types authenticity or they type leadership, we want vicrankin.com to be one of those websites that come on top. And that is what people are doing now. So that is just a big part of, being intentional. Now, if you think about Mr. Rankin here, who hasn't always been intentional about his digital footprint.
No, I haven't.
I mean, I think the good thing here is that you have a website, right? And a lot of people, they don't have websites. So anything and everything comes up. But when we Google Vigela Rankin, your website comes up because that is the name of your website. So that is the other things as well. Even when you're doing your YouTube channel, for example. So I have a YouTube channel, but it's Unwind with Fifi. Nowhere does it say Refilwe Digomaje. Hence, it's not popping up as one of the first things, when you Google me. But your website, for example, Vic, it's called, Vigela Rankin. So it's going to obviously be the first thing that pops up. So we have to be also intentional about then, what do you name, your Twitter account? What do you name your Instagram account? There are people who don't even use their real names on Twitter and on Instagram, just because then they know they're going to, say things that they don't want the employers necessarily finding out about them. But even with the pictures that you then put out there, somehow Google will always find things and people that I don't even know. For example, I don't know this gentleman here, I don't know this lady here, I don't know this lady here, but they are popping up. When you look at the Vic Rankin pictures here, my YouTube channel incidentally appears because we've done an interview together. But because your name was then mentioned there, it'll obviously pop up.
Yeah.
And then your own YouTube channel, you only have one video here, but that's because you've named it Vic. What is your name, your YouTube channel again?
Oh, the elevate and evaluate.
You see, so it doesn't have your name,
Yeah.
hence it's not here. So that is just one of the things that you have to think about, or when you're sitting down and you're saying, okay, what do I want my brand to?
This is why you're running this program, not me.
No, it's only because I'm young and I understand. But so that is why, these are the sort of things that you have to, I urge everybody here tonight, when they finish here, go and Google yourself and see what comes up. And if nothing comes up, that's also a problem, because it is 2020. We're in the digital world. Everybody's talking about the fourth industrial revolution. So if you're not finding anything on you online, it's like, where are you hiding? Are you under a rock? It's just the times that we're living in right now.
Well, I mean, just to second that, having spent 3 years in an executive search firm where we did recruitment, and that was from 2016. It's interesting how things have changed, because when researchers go and look, the first thing they do before they even, check you out is they go and, to your point, Google you. And if they can't find you, they're not gonna, you're already dead in the water. This is not the age back in the day where you said, I really don't want to be part of this, or I don't want WhatsApp, or you have no choices, because the way the world is moving, it's efficient, it's effective. If I want to know somebody, quickly understand who they are, I quickly go there first, I get a sense of who you are, and then I come and look for you. I'm not going to come and look for you, spend all the time looking for you, not find you, then go back and Google you. So it's essential that everybody, really transcends into the space where they're visible and aware, and hopefully with intentionality, put out what they really want people to be able to see authentically and honestly.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you have control over that,
Yep, you do.
So if we look at the personal branding and social media program, evaluate what are things, some of the things that you're going to get, or the benefits of creating your own brand, rather. Creating a brand, it allows you to self-manage your life. You stop depending on others to do it for you. Your personal brand helps you make the most of what you've got to offer. So going back to the example of, before you had to finish matric, go to university, get your degree, and then look for a job. Whereas now, at as young as 15 years old, you can figure out, these are my talents and I'm going to start utilizing my talents. And therefore, by the time I'm 21, or by the time I finish matric at 18, I have huge brands coming in and offering me a job, or offering to want to work with me. So you allow yourself to, you don't have to depend on others because of that. It gives you permission to be yourself. You gain confidence, and it distinguishes you from your competition as well. So if you, as much as, I think Vic has made this great example of, go on YouTube and type in the word cook, and there's thousands and thousands of videos about cooking. But at the same time, if you look at each and every one of those, they're different in some way. So it gives you that permission to be yourself, and also that essentially distinguishes you from your competition or your other people, because there's only one of you, can't be two of you. You get to build credibility, because credibility is about, it goes hand in hand with consistency, and also the time that you've put in it. So that's one of the reasons why we're saying it's great to start now if you haven't already started, so that, if you started early, if you start like the twins, for example, at 2 years old, and you get to 20, they would have built that credibility that I know what I'm talking about. If you are in high school and you start, photography, you start taking your little pictures as practice, you get better and better and better. By the time you get to 18, one, you can use that to apply for university, whatever photography school you want to go to, or when you want jobs, you're showcasing your speciality and you say, listen, I actually know what I'm talking about. I can actually do this because I've been doing it for a while. It also creates the support that you need, because what social media has allowed is also it builds communities. So you'll always find people who are doing the same thing that you are doing. You get to collaborate with people, you get to learn from each other and lean from each other. The other great thing is that leaving your mark. We all want to leave a legacy behind. So this is one way of also leaving your mark behind. The digital footprint, like I said, so you can post something, it doesn't really go away. So either way, it'll always be there. So your kids, your grandkids, your great grandkids will always be able to go online and say, okay, this is what my granddad or this is what my grandmom used to do. And then you also get to connect with your target audience. Whether now you're intentionally trying to make this as a business, or you're creating your own personal brand and then using that as to find employment. So your target audience would be the company that you're then trying to work for. And it also helps you focus your energy, because now you're using your talents, you're harnessing your energy onto that one thing that you will be then doing. And that's where intentionality comes in. There's a lot of digital platforms. You don't necessarily want to use all of them. So focusing your energy on your speciality, but then also on the specific platform that you then want to take your message to your audience to. Vic, do you have anything to say on that?
No, I think you've hit it. You've hit it really well on the nail.
Yeah, thank you. So from the Evaluate program, what we're going to be looking at is obviously social media guidelines. Learn how to set up social media guidelines to support the outcome that you want to achieve. This goes back to what I just said now about there's a lot of platforms to use. You don't necessarily want to, use all of them all at the same time, or, use the wrong one for example. So if what you want to do is cooking and videos, whatever the case is, then platforms like YouTube are great for that. But if you want to create thought leadership pieces, for example, a blog, whatever, LinkedIn is the right platform for you for that. So that's one of the things that we're going to be looking at. We're going to look at navigating the risk. Navigating the risk on social media. One of the slides that we touched on about the negative impact of social media and all that it comes with as well. And then looking at obviously personal branding, building your image, your values, your mission, and then the vision that you want to create using social media as well. And then background checks, one of the things that we spoke about, in terms of employment, the implications of your social media being used for referencing purposes. And then also time management. I think that is a big one. As much as, we have smartphones and we have social media, these are just tools to help us get our messaging out there, but they're not there to also enable us from doing the things that needs to be done. Right? So people are losing out on sleep. People are, not being able to form the connections that we need as humans because they're forever on social media. So that's one of the things that we're going to be looking at. And that goes hand in hand with mental health as well. Managing your mental health and exposure to cyberbullying.
Sorry about the typo with digital there.
Yes, sorry about that. Digital world. So that's one of the things that we're going to be looking at, because as much as there are, a lot of pros, there's also some cons with
and just to touch on that, I mean, I think it's a world we've given a balance, I think, really nicely about, what are the negatives and what are the positive. But one also needs to, as you go into this, you just need to be consciously aware that, there are certain things that can pull you in. I mean, I'll give you an example of a conversation I had with my eldest son, who's very much in this space. And I didn't realize the implications of this, and he didn't realize the implications of this. But when he was talking about, the amount, and there was a time where Instagram was actually thinking of removing it, but the amount of times that people depend on likes, how they measure likes. And like is a useful measure of just that, like. But what happens is that it can quickly transition into something that it becomes a focus in your world. When it becomes a focus in the world and doesn't meet the kind of objectives that you want, it then starts impacting this time management space, right? And then when it starts managing the time management space, it moves straight into the health management issues that are related to that. And that's the one big thing. So likes are useful, but we always have to put likes into the place and the space where they need to be. The second thing is that this program is designed for, there's no age group here, right? As we've said, you literally can start at 2 and go on until about 90. But with the young ones, you've also got to make sure that you expose them to this. Well, actually, it's not true. It's not necessarily just the young ones, but everybody's got to be exposed to the understanding of what cyberbullying can be like. Now, and cyberbullying is, typically we've thought about it as, as somebody saying something, just to you, etc. But it happens all the time. Celebrities get it in terms of what was typically known as hate mail, right? And when you have that, when it becomes persistent from specific people to you, it can be then bullying regardless of your age group. So just managing that, because when you get to 2 million followers or 100,000 followers or 50,000 followers, right, or 25, you will invariably get 1 or 2 idiots in there who try to make your life difficult. And you need to understand how to navigate your way through those kind of worlds. I hope that makes sense.
Absolutely. No, definitely, Vic. Definitely, you're right. Cool. So for everybody who would like to join us, this is what they're going to get. So the membership plan is for 300 Rand, and that's per monthly. And we're going to have obviously one personal branding session, and then we're going to, one personal session, and then
one practical session.
Yes, and then one with a guest speaker.
Yep.
Then we're going to also bring in industry leader expert discussions.
So can I just touch on that leader and industry? So you've got the branding, the personal session branding, and then you've got ones where we will bring useful guest speakers to help you. But I really the big one in this is sometimes not necessarily what I call the center and the sweet spot, and this the industry lead expert. And we've had a couple of these, and the classical one that we had recently was from somebody from the financial services sector. Now remember, in the context of wherever you do on social media, there's a macroeconomic environment. So invariably, those people who become your followers, who connect with you, live in an economic environment. And you need to be aware of what's going on in the economic environment. I was just talking to somebody right now who is in the mining industry. They've just released their results in the mining industry. The mining industry is flying under the current circumstances.
Oh, wow.
What's also interesting is that gold has shot up and accelerated in terms of the resource sector way past platinum. And I asked him, but why is that? And he actually said the reason why gold is actually shooting up past platinum in the sector is because gold is what's considered the almost the tragedy product. So when things go wrong in the world, people put their money in gold. Now, why is all this important? Well, it is important because depending on the very thing that you want to be participating in, depending on that skill that you want to be showing, depending on that very thing that you want to be expressing in social media, it is important for you to understand what's going on in the macro environment so that any connections are about associations, and associations is also about knowledge. Any knowledge that you can utilize for yourself in this space gives you better AMP. So we've decided that on a monthly basis, we will bring in industry lead experts who will have a broad macro discussion. The first two are really about personal branding and they're really about social media. But this one is saying, well, how do I take what I'm doing into the world and what are the implications, whether it's sectorial or whether it's functional? So that's what I think is going to be interesting about that one.
No, absolutely, Vic. And also, the same goes to the Mogul master classes as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Those will also be, looking at what's happening around the world, not just in terms of personal branding, because it will impact whatever it is that you're trying to get into, whatever topic that it is, or the talents that it is you're trying to discuss. That will be a factor as well. And then obviously having access to networking and direct to community evaluate, because one of the things that you also need, is that community. And that's one of the things that we spoke about, being intentional about your personal branding. So whether you want to open a blog about financing, we just had a masterclass, a leadership masterclass on finance. So that is a person that you will now have access to,
Exactly.
whether somebody in the teachers program, whatever it is, that is, we're trying to build this community through the various programs that we are having, so that we can all just, take from the people that are there, the resources essentially that are there for you.
Well, you talked about this thing of, things like CVs. You talked of very specific subject matters. And what the Mogul master classes will do is we will, bring in these experts in these very specific functions. So when we're looking at, anything around digital, for example, from a broader context, if we feel that we need to bring somebody in and have that conversation, you can be part of that, that design. You can also be part of the design that's also linked to somebody we bring in who's saying, this is what your CV should look like. As you know, I've put my CV up on the website in a completely different form. So that access to those kind of, moguls who are very good subject matter topic experts are great. And one thing I like about the directory of communities as you build it is that if you are the brand who's trying to set yourself up in terms of, cooking, and you're somebody else who's trying to set themselves up in terms of photography, et cetera, where there are links and overlaps with each other, you can be quickly able to pick up a phone and say, hey, I need you as photographer to come and take a picture of my food because I want to put it up on my website, right? And that's where that sort of network of communities really, really, really works.